I was 24 when my parents told me they were going on a cruise to celebrate their 30th anniversary. They smiled and told me it was something they had always dreamed of, something special, just for them. I tried to smile back and wish them well, but something in my chest felt heavy, because that cruise had been my idea, and I had paid for it. I wanted to surprise them. I had saved for over a year, working double shifts at the diner, skipping nights out with friends just to give them a week of peace and happiness. But when the tickets arrived, my name was not on the list. They said it was just for two. I laughed, pretending not to care, but that night I cried in my room. I kept telling myself, they deserved this. Maybe I was just overreacting. Maybe it was really a couple thing and they wanted alone time. But a small voice inside me kept whispering, something is wrong. The morning they left, I watched them drive away from the porch. My mom waved, but my dad did not even look back. I felt cold, though it was summer. I walked inside and tried to distract myself, cleaning the kitchen, turning on the TV, but every channel felt empty. I ended up scrolling through social media until I saw a post from one of the cruise passengers. She had tagged the ship name, and when I clicked the link, I saw photos of smiling families, sunlight glittering on the ocean, and then my parents. I zoomed in and froze. My dad was sitting beside a woman I did not recognize. She was young, maybe 30, with dark hair and a bright dress. She was laughing, leaning close to him like they were on a date. My mom was sitting on the other side, looking away, her face pale and tight. I stared at the picture for a long time, my hands shaking. I wanted to believe it was nothing, maybe just another passenger, maybe someone sitting nearby, but my heart did not buy it. I searched for more posts, more photos, more proof, and what I found
It was
made my
supposed to be a
stomach
simple
twist.
dinner,
There were
nothing
more pictures
more,
of that woman with my
just a
dad,
quiet
at dinner,
evening with
walking on the
family
deck
after
together,
years
even
of
one where she held
distance
his
and
hand. I
unspoken
could not find
things.
my mom in any
The
of them.
house
I
smelled
started
like
feeling
roasted
dizzy,
chicken
like
and
the room
apple
was spinning.
pie,
I
the
called my
kind of
mom, but she
smell
did not
that
answer.
tries to hide
I texted her,
tension
she
under
left it on
comfort.
read. I
I
waited
had
an
not
hour,
seen my
then
brother
2, then
Ethan
3.
in nearly 3
Finally, at
years.
night, she
And
replied
now
just
here we
one
were,
message,
sitting
saying,
at the same
"Everything is fine,
table,
honey. Please do not worry."
pretending we were still
That
the
made me worry
same
more,
people we used to
because she
be.
never called me honey,
Mom had gone
only
all
when she was
out,
hiding
cooking
something.
everything
I
we
couldn't
loved.
sleep that night.
Mashed
I kept
potatoes,
seeing that woman's
gravy,
face
green
and my dad
beans, even
smiling in a
his
way I
favorite
had not seen in
cornbread.
years. I
She
knew
kept
I couldn't stay home
smiling,
and wait.
trying to
I
fill
needed to
the
know the
space
truth.
between us
I
with
booked a
small
last-minute
talk,
ticket to Miami,
but
where their
every
ship would dock for
smile
a day
felt
before heading to the
heavy.
Caribbean the next
I could
morning.
see the
I packed a
exhaustion
small
in her
bag and
eyes,
left without
the
telling
way her
anyone.
hands
I
shook
felt half
slightly
crazy,
when she
but the
poured
other half
wine.
of me knew I was right.
She had been waiting
When I
for this
arrived in
night,
Miami, the sun was
hoping
burning,
maybe
the
her
air
two
thick with
sons could
salt.
finally
I found the
speak
cruise
again.
terminal and bought a
The
pass for a smaller
silence
connecting
between
boat
us
that
was
offered
thicker
tours
than
to the
the
same
air outside.
destinations. I
The
figured I
snow
could
was
board near the
falling
island,
gently
stop, and
outside
see
the
for
window,
myself.
and the
When my
glow of
boat reached the
Christmas lights
island, I saw
flickered
their ship
across
anchored
Ethan's
offshore,
face.
massive and
He
shining
looked
like a floating
older,
city. I waited
more
until evening
distant,
when the tourists were moving back
harder
and
than
forth
like the
between the
years had
docks.
carved
I slipped
something
into the
sharp
boarding
into
line,
him.
pretending to be part of a
I
tour
wanted
group.
to say
No one checked my
something,
ID. I
anything,
kept my head
but the
down, my
words
heart
stayed locked
pounding. The
inside,
moment I stepped on
somewhere
that deck,
between
I felt like I
pride
had
and
stepped into
pain.
another world.
Dad's
The
old chair
music,
at
the
the end of the
lights, the smell
table
of
was
perfume
empty.
and sea air.
It had been
I
that
walked
way since he
slowly,
passed,
scanning the crowd,
and
and then
somehow
I
that
saw them
made the
near the outdoor
silence
bar.
louder.
My dad with the
Mom
same woman,
finally
her
said,
hand resting
"It is
lightly on
good to
his
have
arm,
you
my
both home
mom nowhere in
again."
sight.
I
I
nodded.
froze behind a
Ethan
column,
just
trying
stared at
not
his
to breathe.
plate.
I
I
couldn't
tried to
believe my
smile,
eyes.
said
He
it
was
feels
laughing,
strange
whispering
being
something in his
back,
ear.
but
I
good.
wanted to
He
scream, but
looked
I
up
couldn't
finally,
move.
his eyes
Suddenly, the
meeting
woman
mine
turned
for the
slightly,
first
and I
time
saw
all
her face
night.
clearer than in the
And there was
photos.
something
And
in
it
his
hit me.
stare,
I had seen her
something that
before.
made my
She worked
stomach
at my dad's
twist.
office. She used
Mom
to come
kept
by the house
talking
years
about the
ago, always
past,
polite,
about
always
childhood
smiling.
stories,
I remember
about
how my
how we
mom
used
would
to
go
fight
quiet
and
when she
then
left.
laugh minutes
I felt
later.
my blood go
But I
cold.
could tell
Was
Ethan was
her, his
barely
coworker,
listening.
her secret,
When she
the reason they
mentioned,
fought so much last year? I stepped forward, ready to confront him, but then my mom appeared from behind a crowd. She looked tired, her eyes red. She walked straight to him, and the woman slipped away like she had seen a ghost. My dad looked guilty, his voice low. I could not hear the words, but my mom slapped him across the face, the sound sharp even over the music. People started staring. I could not hold back anymore. I ran to them and said, "What is going on?" My mom turned, and when she saw me, she looked broken. She said, "You should not be here," her voice shaking. My dad said, "This is not your business." But I shouted, "It is my business. I paid for this trip. You lied to both of us." He looked away, and I saw shame in his eyes. My mom started crying. I grabbed her hand and told her we should leave. She nodded and said she already had her things packed. We walked away down the corridor while my dad followed behind, begging us to listen, but we did not stop. We locked ourselves in the cabin. My mom fell on the bed, crying. She said she had found messages on his phone before the cruise, but she wanted to believe he had changed. She thought the trip would save them, but instead it exposed everything. I sat beside her, not knowing what to say. She held my hand like she was holding on to the last piece of hope. Outside the window, the ocean was endless, dark and cold. I felt like it was swallowing our whole family. That night on the ship felt like it would never end. I sat beside my mom and listened to the quiet hum of the engines under the floor. Every vibration felt like a heartbeat that was not mine. She finally fell asleep for a few minutes, and I stepped outside to breathe. The hallway lights were dim, and the air smelled of salt and perfume. I walked until I reached the deck and leaned against the rail. The ocean was black and endless. I told myself I was strong, but inside I felt small. I could still see the image of my dad with that woman. Every laugh, every glance, it played again and again like a movie I did not ask to watch. I kept wondering if he had loved her longer than he had loved us. The thought made my chest hurt. I wanted to hate him, but I also wanted answers. Around midnight, the party music from the upper deck stopped. All that was left was the wind. Then I heard voices near the bar. I turned and saw my dad walking with another man. He looked angry. The other man was pointing at him. They were arguing about something. I could not hear words, but I could feel the tension. I followed them quietly down the side corridor. The other man pushed my dad against the wall, and I froze. It was the same man I had seen earlier when I sneaked on board to find my parents. He was wearing a crew badge. My dad shoved him back, and the man walked away fast. My dad looked around, and for a second, his eyes met mine. He looked scared, not guilty, scared. He whispered my name and told me to go back to the cabin. I ran before he could reach me. My heart was pounding. When I returned, my mom was awake. She said someone had slipped a note under the door. It said to meet on the top deck at 2 a.m. and not to tell anyone. The handwriting was shaky. My mom thought it was from my dad. I was not so sure. I wanted to ignore it, but curiosity burned inside me. At 2, I went up alone. The deck was empty except for the sound of the waves. I waited 5 minutes. 10. Then I saw a shadow move near the lifeboats. A woman stepped out. It was the same woman who had been with my dad. She looked nervous. She said she knew I had seen the photos online. She said my dad was not who I thought he was. Her voice shook like she was terrified of being heard. She told me my dad was involved in something on this cruise, something illegal. I asked what she meant, but she only said that he had been helping someone move money through the company that managed the ship. She said he had tried to back out, and that was why he was being watched. If the video stopped there, it meant someone had erased the rest. Someone did not want the truth to be seen. I went back to the cabin and told my mom that the police had new information. I did not tell her what I had really found. She looked tired and lost. She said she just wanted to go home. The ship still had 3 days left before it would reach the final port. Those days felt endless. Every sound of the waves made me jump. I started keeping notes on my phone about everything I saw and heard. A shadow moving outside the cabin at night. Footsteps on the stairs. The same crew member walking past our door again and again. On the second night, I decided to search for the woman who had given me the flash drive. I checked the passenger list that was displayed near the reception area. Her name was not there. I asked a bartender if he had seen her, but he shook his head. I began to wonder if she was even real. Maybe I had imagined her. But then I remembered her eyes. Fear can't be imagined that clearly. Later that night, I sneaked back to the deck where my dad had last been seen. The sea was calm. The moonlight spread across the water like a silver path. Near the railing, I noticed a small piece of torn fabric caught on a bolt. It looked like part of my dad's shirt. I pulled it free and held it tight. I whispered that I would find out what happened to him no matter what. The next morning, the police called my mom to the captain's office. When she came back, her face was white. She said they had found a wallet floating near the ship early that morning. It was my dad's. Inside was his ID and a note written on a napkin. It said, "I am sorry." My mom started
It was
crying
supposed to be
again.
a simple
The
dinner,
police said they
nothing
believed
more,
he had fallen or
just a
jumped.
quiet
They wanted
evening
to
with
close the
family
case.
after
But I knew
years
that
of
note was
distance
not
and
written by him.
unspoken things.
The handwriting was
The
wrong.
house
I
smelled
had seen
like
his writing
roasted
all my
chicken and
life.
apple pie,
This was someone
the
else.
kind of smell
I
that
showed the
tries to
note to the
hide
officers,
tension
but they
under
dismissed
comfort.
me. They said
I had not
stress can
seen
make
my brother
handwriting
Ethan
change.
in
I
nearly
wanted
3
to
years.
scream.
And now here
Instead,
we
I
were,
walked out to the
sitting
deck
at the
and
same
looked at the
table,
endless water again.
pretending we were
I felt
still
like
the
it was
same
hiding him.
people we used to
The
be.
wind was cold,
Mom
even
had
though the
gone all
sun was
out,
bright.
cooking
I decided
everything
I
we
would
loved.
not leave the ship
Mashed
until I
potatoes,
found
gravy,
proof.
green beans,
That
even
night,
his
I
favorite
went back to the
cornbread.
control room.
She kept
The door was
smiling,
locked this
trying to
time.
fill the
I
space
waited until the
between
guard
us
left
with small
again, then
talk,
slipped
but
inside
every
using a pen to
smile
push the
felt
latch.
heavy.
I searched
I
the
could see
computer
the
for any
exhaustion
backup
in her
files.
eyes, the
There was
way
a
her
folder
hands
labeled
shook
maintenance
slightly when
cameras.
she poured wine.
Inside, I found the footage
She
that
had been
been
waiting for
erased.
this night,
I watched it in
hoping
silence.
maybe her
My
2
dad and the
sons
man
could
argued
finally
again.
speak
The
again.
man shoved
The
him toward the railing.
silence between
My
us
dad
was
grabbed it,
thicker
but
than the
lost
air
balance.
outside.
The man looked
The
around,
snow was
then
falling
pushed him
gently
over.
outside the
I
window,
covered my mouth
and the
to keep
glow
from
of Christmas
screaming.
lights
The
flickered
timestamp
across
showed
Ethan's face.
exactly the same
He
hour the
looked
police said he
older,
disappeared.
more
I copied the
distant,
video onto my
harder
phone and
than
ran
like the
back to the
years had
cabin.
carved
My
something
mom was
sharp
sleeping.
into him.
I sat on the
I
floor and
wanted to
watched
say
the clip
something,
again. It
anything,
felt
but the
unreal.
words
My
stayed
dad had
locked
not run
inside,
away. He
somewhere
had been
between
murdered, and the
pride
killer
and
was
pain.
still on this ship.
Dad's old chair
I
at the
knew
end
if I
of the
went to the
table was
police,
empty.
they might not
It had
believe
been
me.
that way
The
since
man
he
was cruel.
passed,
They would
and
protect their
somehow
own.
that made the
I decided to
silence
wait until we
louder.
reached the final port
Mom
and go
finally
straight
said,
to the FBI.
"It is good to have
But
you
the ship
both home
never
again."
reached the final
I
port.
nodded.
The next
Ethan just
morning,
stared at
alarms
his
went off
plate.
across the deck.
I tried to
The captain
smile,
announced that we
said
had to
it
stop at a
feels
smaller
strange
island
being
because of an
back,
engine
but good.
issue.
He
Everyone was
looked up
told to stay
finally,
calm.
his
I
eyes
packed our
meeting
bags
mine for the
quietly.
first
I wanted
time
to
all
be ready
night.
to leave as
And there
soon
was
as we docked.
something in his
My
stare,
mom asked why I was
something
in
that
such a
made my
hurry. I
stomach
said I
twist.
just wanted to go
Mom
home.
kept
I
talking
did
about the
not tell her
past,
that the man who
about
killed my
childhood
dad
stories,
had seen
about
me
how
near the
we used to
control
fight
room
and
last
then
night.
laugh
I
minutes
knew
later.
he would come for
But
me
I could
next.
tell
When
Ethan
we
was
docked at the
barely
island,
listening.
passengers were
When she
allowed to
mentioned
walk around for a few hours. I took my mom's hand and we left the ship pretending to shop for souvenirs. Once we were on land, I pulled her toward a police post near the pier. I was about to show the officer my phone when I felt someone grab my shoulder. It was the crew member. His eyes were cold. He said we needed to talk. The officer turned away to answer a radio call. The man whispered that I did not know what I was doing, that my dad had stolen something from him, that the video would destroy more than just one life. I pushed his hand off and ran. My mom ran with me. We hid behind a row of market stalls until the ship horn sounded. They were calling passengers back on board. I told my mom we could not go back. She said all our belongings were still there. I said we could buy new ones. I showed her the video. Her knees gave out and she started to sob. I helped her up and we walked straight to the island police office again. This time, I made them watch the footage. The officer called for backup immediately. They kept us there for hours taking statements. When they went to the ship to arrest the man, he was gone. He had vanished before they reached the dock. They searched his cabin and found multiple fake IDs and cash hidden inside a suitcase. The captain apologized and promised to help with the investigation. The cruise ended early. The passengers were sent home on separate flights.